Hi everyone and welcome. You're watching Eagle News. I'm Ken Cruz in Washington. It's Saturday, February 26th, 2022 here in the nation's capital. This week's stories. President Joe Biden slaps economic sanctions against Russia in response to its invasion of Ukraine. Anti-war protests erupt across the globe as Russia invades Ukraine. A Toronto middle school reports anti-Semitic incidents displaying Nazi symbology. Avian influenza in a Delaware poultry farm has been confirmed. Learning Curve brings us a story about NASA's Mars rover running for its anniversary. Down to Earth tells us about California facing its longest dry spell since the 1920s. Embassy Files reports about the Spanish Embassy's fourth Not Your Regular Wall event with illustrator Adolfo Serra as the year's guest of honor. EBC Sports International shares with us an interview with Yankees top prospect Anthony Volpe as he talks about his love for baseball. Plus, drag racing makes a nitro-powered return at the Auto Club Raceway with its season opener NHRA Winter Nationals. And in NBA news, the Warriors dominate the Trailblazers. OceaniaAtAGlance brings us some good news as Papua New Guinea reopens its borders to international travelers. Health is Wealth has a lower body workout for us today. Plus, Glow Up gives us some useful tips on how we can care for our skin by protecting it from sun damage. Our coverage begins now. The war has begun. Russia invaded Ukraine Wednesday, a move world leaders called an unprovoked attack on a sovereign and independent nation, the likes of which have not been seen since World War II. Bureau Chief Arlene Ocampo tells us about the first of many sanctions the United States is slapping against Russia following its, quote, attack on democracy.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday announces severe new sanctions on Russia, including freezing assets of major banks and cutting off high-tech exports. This is in response to what the White House called an unprovoked and unjustified attack of Ukraine by Russia. Biden emphasizes that Russian President Vladimir Putin would feel the consequences of the Ukraine invasion.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war. And now he and his country will bear the consequences. Today, I'm authorizing additional strong sanctions and new limitations on what can be exported to Russia. This is going to impose severe cost on the Russian economy, both immediately and over time. We have purposely designed these sanctions to maximize the long-term impact on Russia and to minimize the impact on the United States and our allies.
The sanctions aim at crippling Russia's banking system.
We've cut off Russia's largest bank, a bank that holds more than 1/3 of Russia's banking assets by itself. Cut it off from the U.S. financial system. And today, we're also blocking 4 more major banks. That means every asset they have in America will be frozen.
And in coordination with other countries, Russia's tech industry is also being targeted.
Between our actions and those of our allies and partners, we estimate that we'll cut off more than half of Russia's high-tech imports. It'll strike a blow to their ability to continue to modernize their military. It'll degrade their aerospace industry, including their space program. It'll hurt their ability to build ships, reducing their ability to compete economically. And it will be a major hit to Putin's long-term strategic ambitions. And we're preparing to do more.
The White House says President Biden held a phone call with his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, soon after explosions were heard in multiple parts of the country, which is sandwiched between Russia and NATO member Poland. Arlene Ocampo, Eagle News, Washington, D.C.
Thanks, Arlene. In related news, Ukrainians, their families, and their supporters in several parts of the United States and other countries stage rallies to ask for help from the American government and its allies as Russian troops tear across Ukraine's borders, launching attacks from the sky and on land. Here in Washington, more than 100 people gathered to show solidarity with Ukraine hoping that, quote, President Biden will draw red lines which President Putin will not cross, end quote. In Chicago, several hours after Russia launched the invasion of Ukraine, morning commuters were met with protesters gathered on an overpass, waving Ukrainian flags and signs asking for support. In Chile, dozens of protesters gathered in Santiago in solidarity with Ukraine. One says it is really scary when you feel that you can't really do anything. Ukrainians living in the United Kingdom demonstrate in front of the Downing Street and react to the new economic sanctions against Russia announced by Prime Minister Boris Johnson. A group of foreign expatriates and local Taiwanese rally outside the Russian representative office in Taipei to protest against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Ukrainians at the rally say they feel helpless being so far away from home, but coming to the protest and meeting other supporters makes them feel better. Meanwhile, in Toronto, a different conflict arises after reports of anti-Semitic incidents in middle schools have caused alarm across Canada. Joshua Santillana reports.
2 anti-Semitic incidents have just happened this month at one Toronto middle school. Last week, 3 students surrounded a French teacher at Valley Park Middle School and gave her a Nazi or Hitler salute. This incident happened inside the teacher's grade 8 classroom. 2 students stood up on a filing cabinet and performed the Nazi salute, and a 3rd student shouted "Hail Hitler" from his desk. The said teacher is also a child of Holocaust survivors. Weeks ago, the Toronto District School Board, or TDSB, also confirmed that incidents of the anti-Semitic swastika graffitis were also discovered at the same school. Similar incidents have happened at Charles H. Best Middle School, with swastikas depicted in a classroom, and some students performing the Hitler salute in front of other students. Principal of Valley Park Middle School, George Bartzis, confirmed these anti-Semitic incidents through a letter sent to the students' parents Tuesday, expressing that these incidents are very upsetting and unacceptable, and not reflective of who they are and what they stand for as a school and as a community.
TDSB Director of Education Colleen Russell-Rollins calls this incident highly offensive and shows us how much work still needs to be done to educate students and staff on anti-Semitism.
President and CEO of Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies, Michael Levitt, says that it is unfathomable and shocking that in 2022, a Jewish teacher is faced with Nazi salutes and a Hail Hitler chant in her classroom. Levitt also calls for an emergency intervention and to proactively send a strong message that Jew hatred will simply not be tolerated within our schools. Valley Park Middle School Principal Bartzis says that next month, students and staff will be listening and learning from Holocaust survivors themselves to further their Holocaust education and confront anti-Semitism in classrooms. Several government officials, such as Toronto Mayor John Tory, Minister of Education Stephen Lecce, Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca, and NDP leader Andrea Horwath also calls for an urgent response from the TDSB and their solidarity with the Jewish community. TDSB Director Russell Rollins reports that 91% of the reported racism and hate incidents in schools are committed by students themselves, which calls for an urgent focus on educating students on the horrors and enduring pain brought by the Holocaust. Joshua Santillana, Eagle News, Toronto.
Thanks, Joshua. Back here in the U.S., an airborne respiratory virus is plaguing poultry farms in several states. Bureau Chief Mila Simbulan tells us what Delaware and Pennsylvania are doing to curb the spread of the virus to protect this billion-dollar industry. Here are the details.
In the state of Delaware, a case of avian influenza on a poultry farm has been confirmed, showing an increase in poultry deaths over the past few days. This after an investigation by the Delaware Department of Agriculture, or DDA, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA's National Veterinary Services Laboratory, has confirmed poultry from this farm have tested positive for the highly pathogenic H5N1 avian influenza HPN1. As of date, there is no public health concern, and avian influenza does not affect poultry meat or egg products. This remains safe to eat. The DDA and its partner agencies, including the USDA, are working to contain the situation, including sampling and quarantining nearby poultry flocks. Avian influenza is an airborne respiratory virus that spreads easily among chickens through nasal and eye secretions as well as manure. The virus can be spread in various ways from flock to flock, including by wild birds, through contact with infected poultry, by equipment, and on the clothing and shoes of caretakers. The said farm is under quarantine to curb infecting other flocks in the state. The birds in the affected farm will be depopulated to prevent the spread of disease and not enter the food system. Due to the severity of the avian influenza, anyone found trespassing on a quarantine farm will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The avian influenza detection was the highly pathogenic H5 type, which is more severe and can cause high mortality in poultry flocks. It is the same strain confirmed in other states and among wild birds in the Atlantic Flyway. This is the first case of HPAI in commercial poultry in Delaware since 2004. Meanwhile, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture reminds the state to stay vigilant and review biosecurity practices. HPAI is very contagious and can make wild and domesticated birds very sick and lead to death. Bird owners should step up biosecurity efforts to protect their flock. Pennsylvania's 7.1 billion poultry industry at large. As of February 17, 2022, the states of Indiana and Kentucky have reported commercial affected flocks, and Virginia has reported a backyard affected flock of mixed birds. Myla Simbula, Eagle News, Swarthmore, Pennsylvania.
Thanks, Myla. From poultry farms, let's head farther toward outer space on this week's Learning Curve. Philip Toledo tells us how NASA's Perseverance rover celebrated its first year on Mars. Let me guess, cakes and candles? Not quite. Here's Philip to tell us more.
By the time we hit our first birthday, some of us might have been walking. But the reality is anything more than a few steps was probably a pretty big challenge. However, that's not the case for NASA's Perseverance rover for its first anniversary on Mars. According to NASA, Perseverance, the heaviest rover to rove around the red planet, recently broke the record of most distance traveled in one day, traversing over 1,000 feet or 320 meters. That may not seem like a lot by Earth standards, but Perseverance did this using AutoNav, special software that helps it navigate on its own around rocks and obstacles. This rover has had several significant firsts during its mission so far as well. It is carrying the first rock samples from another planet and serves as the home base for the first helicopter to be used on Mars. Scientists are also using it to prototype oxygen generators that might one day help with manned missions to the planet. One of Perseverance's key mission objectives is to search for signs of ancient microbial life. The rock samples already collected within the landing crater that used to be a lake billions of years ago will be critical for this. Later this year, scientists hope to get the rover to an ancient river delta in hope of getting more samples. Curious to how these samples will make it back to Earth-based scientists? Well, NASA is working with the European Space Agency to launch future missions that would collect the samples from Perseverance and bring them back home. All of us here at Learning Curve join NASA in congratulating the Perseverance team for a year of success and scientific discovery on the red planet. Philip Toledo, Learning Curve, Eagle News.
Thanks, Philip. Now back to Earth. Dry as a dog biscuit. That's one way of describing Southern California these days. As Eagle News correspondent Julian Fiesta explains, the lack of rain and snow in the first 2 months of this year could mean some lifestyle changes for people in the Los Angeles region.
And February are the months in which Los Angeles and surrounding counties get the most precipitation. Heavy rain in the city, lots of snow in the mountains. But this year, little precipitation has dropped from what few clouds there have been in the sky. In fact, the state is facing its longest dry spell since 1924, and that's going to affect everyday life. Reservoirs have received less than half of the regular seasonal average of rain. Most of the snow in the mountains has already melted, well ahead of April when it usually does. And weather forecasters say no major storms are expected in the next couple of weeks. Water conservation is going to be the order of the day. Governor Gavin Newsom calls the situation a drought emergency. He wants to see everyone in the state cut their water usage by 15%. Some of the measures are common sense: turning the water off when brushing teeth or shaving using low-flush toilets and low-volume shower heads. Other measures include fining people who wash their cars with drinking water or those who water their lawns 2 days before or after a rain. A better idea would be to landscape with plants that require little water. The city of Los Angeles is making $2 million available for owners of apartment, commercial, and industrial buildings to put in water conservation systems. As Californians prepare for a dry summer, there are questions about what the future might hold. Will Southern California experience heat waves that affect even the healthiest of residents? Will it cool off next winter? Ultimately, as climate changes, so will lifestyles. One lifestyle change is learning to live with less water. Julian Fiesta, Eagle News, Los Angeles.
Thanks, Julian. As environmentalists put it, you never know the worth of water until the well runs dry. Let's not wait till there's no more water to conserve. Start now. Save every drop. Now, on this week's Embassy Files, we visit the Spanish Embassy for the 4th annual Not Your Regular Wall event. Arlene Ocampo tells us about this year's guest of honor and his works. Arlene?
"2022 marks the 4th year of Not Your Regular Wall. This form of creative design allows Spanish artists the chance to use the hall of the former residence of the ambassadors of Spain in Washington, D.C. as an avenue to communicate through art. Adolfo Serra, a Spanish illustrator, is this year's guest of honor. This year's theme for Not Your Regular Wall is celebration. Serra incorporates this through illustrations that tell a story. Celebrating belongingness and togetherness are manifested in his expressive pieces. A rabbit that travels, human beings that move, depicting how life goes on. A housebird that mirrors unity, sharing and growing together. A forest fox that sleeps while human beings celebrate returning to nature through dancing and playing. The environment that surrounds us, water, trees, nature, the communities we live in, relationships we share. These simple things exhibit celebration of life despite any circumstances. Visit exteriores.gov.es for more details about the illustrator and his artistic displays. Stay tuned to Eagle News for more from the nation's capital. Arlene Ocampo, Embassy Files, Eagle News.
Thanks, Arlene. This week, for Black History Month, Color My World brings us to San Antonio, Texas, where we learn about the Buffalo Soldiers, who they were, the role they played in American history, and a local group that actively carries on their legacy, sharing the history, costumes, and artifacts with the next generation. Bureau Chief Jane Kathleen Gregorio reports.
At the San Pedro Springs Park, visitors can enjoy not only the many amenities the park has to offer, but they can also take in a piece of American history. the historical marker of the Buffalo Soldiers' 9th Regiment.
In honor of Black History Month, our story brings us to San Antonio, Texas, where a local group honors the legacy of the Buffalo Soldiers, a name of endearment given to African American soldiers who mostly served on the western frontier from the 1800s all the way to World War II.
African Americans have fought in every war that the United States has participated in, from the Revolutionary War to War of 1812, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, all of the wars. African Americans were valiant warriors for the United States. Because of the way that the Buffalo Soldiers fought, they did not give up. They were true warriors, true fighters, and the Native Americans respected them. And that's how the term Buffalo Soldiers was established. And you may hear people say, well, it was because the African Americans looked like the buffalo in their color, or their hair texture was like the Buffalo Soldiers' hair. But the real reason was because the Native Americans were highly respectful of the buffalo. The buffalo, because of the way they fought, it was difficult for them to kill the buffalo. And sometimes the buffalo killed them. And again, initially, the soldiers even thought that it was an insult. And then when they learned exactly how the Native Americans felt about the Buffalo Soldier, to be called a Buffalo Soldier was a great deal. During the Civil War, the African American soldiers were called colored troops. 1866 there was an Authorization Act which took the army from being basically a militia to a regular army. For the first time, we had representation in Congress that were African American. They demanded that some of those were colored troops. Those were the 9th and 10th Cavalry, the 38th, 39th, 40th, and 41st Infantry that later became 24th and 25th Infantry. The 10th Cavalry was formed at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, while the 9th Cavalry moved from Greenville, Louisiana to Fort Sam Houston to conduct their basic training. That's why our chapter, Bexar County Buffalo Soldiers, adopted the 9th Cavalry to represent them. The services that Bexar County Buffalo Soldiers provide is primarily education. And we don't reenact, we represent. We talk about the history. That's the difference between us and reenactors. We go into schools, we go into churches, we go into community groups and provide lectures, as well as show a display of our artifacts from the period. We also provide an annual Veterans Day ceremony at the National Cemetery, where some Buffalo soldiers were buried, as well as General Bullis, who was also the namesake for Camp Bullis. General Bullis was a Buffalo soldier. We celebrate a Buffalo Soldier Month in July, where we open the park, and we have a park that was donated to us by CPS back on 1866. And I want you to remember, the majority of the Buffalo Soldiers were ex-slaves. So they went from getting zero money to $13 a month. And their mission was to move westward with the settlers, to protect the settlers from outlaws as well as Native American renegades. So the 9th and 10th Cavalry had the lowest desertion rate of any other service members. During the Indian War period, there were 14 Buffalo soldiers that earned the Medal of Honor and 4 Seminole Scouts. Now we have females in the infantry. Well, Kathy Williams broke that barrier a long time ago because she was in the 38th Infantry. She enlisted under the name of William Cathay. She was tall for her time. She was 5'10", and where most of the guys were relatively short. She made the Army believe that she was a male. And the Army finally discovered she was a female, and when she became ill and discharged her because of fraudulent enlistment. To become a Bexar County Buffalo soldier, you inform the Bexar County Buffalo soldier that you're interested in becoming a member. Most of us are retired from the military, but that is not a prerequisite of being a Bexar County Buffalo soldier. We just recently unveiled a monument or a historical marker in San Pedro Springs where they did their basic training.
Hello, my name is Dr. Michelle Jefferson. I am a Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Army. I am a Veterinary Corps officer, and I was actually present for the dedication of this Buffalo Soldier marker. I'm just proud that finally the Buffalo Soldiers are given the respect that they deserve, and having this marker here in San Pedro Springs is the respect that they deserve.
In San Antonio, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News.
Thanks, Kathleen, for that quick history lesson. On EBC Sports International, our New Jersey bureau got to sit down and get some insight from Yankees Minor League 2021 Player of the Year Anthony Volpe about his life in baseball and his dream to become a New York Yankee shortstop. Bureau Chief Carlo Valdez has more.
Anthony Volpe, living the dream. Like any boy growing up in New York City, he became a fan of the Yankees, that iconic team of America's national pastime.
The New York Yankees select Anthony.
Anthony Volpe, just 20 years old, has been drafted by the farm team of the New York Yankees. His dad Michael says Anthony's passion for baseball had its roots in its infancy.
In our small apartment in New York City, as the game was on, I would throw him these little balls, and he would hit him with this little wooden bat, and we would just play games, and I would try to get him out, and he would try to jump over me, or if I got him out, he would argue, and Seth's probably when he was about 2, maybe.
And Anthony soon outgrew that and began running the bases.
Really, ever since I can remember, I've been playing baseball. I mean, my earliest memories, I have a ball in my hand and I'm just playing at the field with my dad and with my whole family. So those are kind of my best memories, playing the game.
That passion for the sport grew during the years, and by middle school, Anthony made the USA national team. By the time he reached high school, Anthony was living in New Jersey, becoming a superstar on the diamond. But he didn't allow the sport to overtake his studies. Anthony maintained straight A's until graduation. Right after receiving his high school diploma, it was decision time for Anthony. He had been accepted to Vanderbilt University, known for its premier college baseball program. But also knocking at his door were the Yankees, who wanted to draft him. A dream come true.
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. I mean, obviously, growing up in New York City and being such a huge Yankee fan, I'd say it's every kid's dream that I grew up with. So it's definitely surreal. It's hard to kind of put into words, but I think the most special part about it was just being there with my family and my friends and all my coaches and all the people that kind of helped me get to where I was.
But don't look for the talented shortstop in Yankee Stadium just yet. This #1 prospect is working his way through the Yankee farm system. Last year was good to him, named Yankees 2021 Minor League Player of the Year. This spring he will play for the Somerset Patriots, the AA affiliate of the Yankees. None of this is a surprise to Anthony's family, says his dad Michael.
I knew when he was a baby because he walked so early, like about 9 months old, and he was really athletic compared to the other kids in his grade, that he was a good athlete. Like, I knew that from when he was really, really young.
And Anthony, who is now on top of the world, says he's truly blessed.
Yeah, I just say, like I said, thank you to my parents, my whole family. I wouldn't obviously be able to do it without them. I know it sounds cliche, but I'm very lucky.
On what he hopes is the verge of a legacy, Anthony Volpe is focused on today, getting ready for his debut in Yankee Stadium. Carlo Valdez, EBC Sports International, New Jersey.
Thanks, Carlo. Next week will be part 2 of our interview with Anthony Volpe. Stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, the National Hot Rod Association welcomes racing fans back to the drag strip at the Auto Club Raceway. The 62nd annual Lucas Oil NHRA Winter Nationals opens the 2022 season with head-to-head clashes between dragsters capable of going 0 to 100 in less than a second and reaching speeds topping 300 miles per hour. In Pomona, California, let's hear from Alan and Eva Basalyaje.
Drag racing is back. We're talking nitrous guzzling, bone jarring action returning to thrill NHRA fans.
Familiar drivers and crews report to the Auto Club Raceway at Pomona, with a few of them rolling out changes for the new season.
One such team to do this comes from Toyota Racing.
This is our debut race with it here in Pomona. We did some preseason testing with it earlier the beginning of the year in Florida. Then we ran last week in Phoenix with it, and ran some really good numbers in preseason testing. One of my best runs at 3.86 seconds at over 334 miles an hour. For those that aren't familiar with a Nitro Funny Car, they produce upwards of 11,000 to 12,000 horsepower, 0 to 330 plus miles an hour in 3.8 seconds. So I like to think that we now have the world's quickest and fastest Toyota GR Supra. As a kid, I always drove dragsters all the way up until, my late 30s, basically. So all those characteristics you learn, and then you hop into a funny car, which is shorter wheelbase, heavier. The engine's in front of you. They don't have as much downforce as a dragster. It takes a whole new driving style that I basically had to kind of relearn how to drive again. You've got to be more aggressive with the steering wheel at times compared to the dragster because they're so much longer. But they are harder, I think, and challenging. But at the same time, they're a whole lot of fun. Not that dragsters aren't fun, I just think that the Ds are totally different, and I enjoy the challenge that they bring. People always ask me, what my daily driver is, do I have some sort of hot rod? But once I got that GR Supra, it's nice to just cruise in. I just recently moved to Florida, so I like cruising along the beach and that thing, and like getting people, like I said, waving to you, thumbs up and stuff like that. So when this thing goes 330 miles an hour, I want to go home and just relax and not be in a hurry,
For a drag racer, being in a hurry is measured at hundreds of miles per hour in less seconds than you can count on one hand.
Sometimes you get in the car and you're just really calm, cool, collected, and sometimes you get in the car and you just have adrenaline running through you. There's a lot of just different situations that arise throughout the year of, between qualifying and testing and racing, and then final rounds, and depending on who you're racing. And so there's a lot of things that go on throughout the year. Obviously it's a great feeling to go 330 miles an hour and accelerate, 0 to 100 in less than a second, 6 Gs. It's a pretty incredible feeling. A lot of races separate by thousandths of a second. So in our sport, there's no do-overs. So everything matters from the time you hit the gas to the time you shut the car off. Every turn of the wheel is just ways to slow yourself down. So you really try to be as smooth as possible and as quick as possible. And when you're separated by thousandths of a second, one false move or one bad move or one mechanical error will cost you the race. This team's a great team. You know, the DHL crew has been together for a couple years. We've had a couple little changes in the off season, brought in a couple people that we feel can really help the organization. And then obviously with Toyota Gazoo Racing, we have a lot of support from them. We have crew chiefs on between the DHL Funny Car, DHL Dragster, and the Mac Tools Dragster. They relay information back and forth. So there's a lot of brain trust that goes on and a lot of information that gets passed throughout the three teams throughout the day. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's one big team, and you know, hopefully we're able to accomplish some big things at the end of the year. A little different from the last couple of years. I mean, so it's obviously good to get everybody back out to the races, enjoying it, and having a beautiful day out here, and get back to what we love, and that's watch fast race cars and for us to go fast.
Going fast is the name of the game for both seasoned pros and junior drag racers looking to be the future of the NHRA.
We're having the juniors display our cars, as you can see, to just spread the word about junior drag racing and broaden the whole program. Our cars, it's very, very consistent. So if we want to turn 790, it'll run like 790 or anywhere around that. Makes like mid 50 horsepower. I'm pretty sure it's like 500 cc's. It's crazy, it goes fast. I wanted to change the car to be more me, but everyone started complimenting how nice it looked, how sparkly it was. And then I soon to fall in love with like the orange and the gold and the sparkles and the flames. So now it just became a part of me. Like orange is now one of my top favorite colors. If you look, like all the cars are blue or white. My car's different and it pops.
The 62nd annual Lucas Oil NHRA Winter Nationals kicks off a drag racing season which, when experienced in person, creates a markedly different kind of sensation.
When you're in the stands, you feel the rumble underneath you, and you feel the power, and that's a part of the attention draw that I think a lot of people come back is because of that, and being able to come into the pits and see the driver, see the crew, see them tear apart a motor, down to a bare block, put it back together in an hour and fire it back up and go out there and make another run. So they're able to stand behind us when we warm it up, and they're able to smell the nitro and get a little bit of that burn of the nitro sensation. So like I said, it's the atmosphere that's what sells the ticket.
Once we hit the throttle with 11,000 horsepower, it's like a small earthquake. You know, for those who haven't been out here, like you see them jump off the ground almost. It's a pretty cool experience. I've never seen someone come out here for their first time and say they didn't enjoy it. You know, they always come back and tell their friends, and that's what it's all about.
The road between season opener and the championships in November is a long one.
But as long as there's engine roaring, smoke billowing driving, then drag racing fans are more than up for it.
Evan Allen, Eagle News, Los Angeles.
Thanks, Alan and Eva. Now for some NBA news. After an MVP performance in the All-Star game, Steph Curry leads the Golden State Warriors against the Portland Trail Blazers Thursday night. EBC correspondent Mike Hudson was there for the coverage.
Hey everybody, I'm here in Portland, Oregon at the Moda Center where the Portland Trail Blazers are hosting the Golden State Warriors.
In the first quarter, the pace of the game was rampant as both teams were pretty fresh coming off a week-long rest during the All-Star break. The Warriors started the game with an emphatic dunk by starting center Kevon Looney, as well as a three-pointer and driving layup by starting forward Gary Payton II. The Trailblazers had fight in them early as former NBA slam dunk champion Anthony Simons led the team with 10 points, and fellow guard Josh Hart was 4 for 4 from the field with 8 points after the first quarter. In the second half, things turned over towards the Warriors' way for good as the Splash Brothers, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, heated up, finishing off the game with 18 points apiece and not even playing a single minute in the final quarter of the game. The Blazers' Anthony Simons led all scorers with 24 points, and Steph Curry also chipped in with 14 assists, giving the Golden State Warriors an overall record of 43-17. Reporting from Portland, Oregon, this is Michael Hudson, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you.
Thanks, Mike. In other news, in Papua New Guinea, international travelers are welcome again as the country reopens its borders. OceaniaAtAGlance correspondent Eka Hortaleza Quinola has more.
Papua New Guinea's airline, Air Niugini, has announced that from February 21 onwards, international flights are now open for those who are fully vaccinated. Air Niugini reminds passengers to present the International Vaccination Papua New Guinea Yellow Card Certificate before check-in. Papua New Guinea Vaccination Green Card Certificate is not valid for traveling purposes because it does not indicate the holder's dates of birth and passport number. The health protocols remain and several requirements must be met. Passengers flying to Australia must complete a negative rapid test and PCR test no longer than 3 days prior to their scheduled flight. These tests can be conducted inside the airport premises. Passengers traveling to the Philippines must undergo the RT-PCR test. This must be completed within 48 hours before departure time. Tourists are now allowed to visit Papua New Guinea. However, direct travel from Papua New Guinea to Cairns is still banned by the Queensland government until March 22, 2022. It is expected that many travelers whose overdue vacation has been aborted due to the pandemic can now resume planning their vacation. Eko Hortaleza Quinola, OceaniaAtAGlance, Eagle News.
Thanks, Echo. Last week, Frendel introduced us to Health is Wealth friend, amateur boxer Jericho Montefiore, as he showed us workout moves to strengthen our arms and abs. This week, he'll help us work on our lower body. Get those legs ready.
Health is wealth. Are you one of those looking to hit your exercise goals? Well, perhaps some inspiration and motivation can help you move into action. Just like I said last week, licensed amateur boxer Jericho Montefiore from San Antonio, Texas is back. Last week he shared some tips on what we can do to work out our arms and our abs. Today, we get to expand our knowledge on ways to work out our lower body. Check it out.
It's time to work on the legs using squats. The beginner version of the squat: first, stand with your feet shoulder width apart and then your arms straight. Push your hips backwards and sit towards your heels, keeping your core tight, back straight, and then upper body upright. Once your hips are parallel with your knees, drive your hips forward and rise back to a standing position. The intermediate version of the squats is a frog jump. First, sit back with your feet in a wide stance with the toes turned out on an angle. Jump forward and up, land on your toes, and then squat. Jump back and return to the starting position, and then repeat. The expert version is a pistol squat. First, begin standing with your feet together and parallel. Extend one leg in front of you, as straight as you can, with your heel off the floor. Raise your arms straight out in front of you. Keep your core tight and your spine straight. Bend to your standing leg and lower your body, continuing to extend your other leg in front of you. Keep the front foot of your standing leg flat on the floor. Continue to bend through your standing knee as far as you can while aiming to get your extending leg parallel to the floor. Straighten your standing leg to return upright. Switch legs and repeat.
There you have it. Give those a try and meet me back here next week, where we get to meet individuals who are actually taking these tips and applying it on a regular basis. Now remember, for your own health and safety, before starting any new program, any new fitness program, make sure you consult with your physician. Let's stay hydrated, don't forget to stretch. Health is wealth. Frendel Feheran, Eagle News.
Thanks, Frendel and Jericho. After we make sure our bodies are strong and fit, let's not forget to take care of our skin. On this week's Glow Up, skincare enthusiast Bernadette Reguini shares with us some simple, necessary tips on how to protect our skin from the sun's damage. Take it away, Bernadette.
What time of day should we avoid being exposed to the sun's strongest ultraviolet rays? It's that time of year again. Longer daylight hours, warmer weather. What does that mean? More sun exposure. However, not protecting our skin from the sun's harmful UV rays could cause sun damage. So it's important that we do our part in protecting our skin. What do you do to protect your skin? Welcome back to Glow Up, where we share our experiences with you on this journey to becoming the most beautiful version of ourselves, both inside and out. It's me again, your friend Bernadette. But before I move on, I will remind you I am not a skincare professional nor an expert, but I am a skin and beauty enthusiast wanting to share my personal experiences with you on how to glow up. So to answer our earlier question, what time of day should we avoid being exposed to the sun's harmful UV rays? It's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. During this time, the sun's ultraviolet rays are at its strongest. However, if you need to go outside, you should take necessary steps to protect your skin. So today I'm going to share with you what I would do. First of all, I would use sunscreen. Using sunscreen is important, but I also take an extra step of using makeup that has SPF, because makeup alone does not protect our skin from the sun's harmful UV rays. The Skincare Foundation recommends that if you're going to be outside for extended hours of time, make sure you look for sunscreen that is water resistant and is broad spectrum and has an SPF of 30 or more. But regardless of the SPF, you should reapply it every 2 hours. Another tip is wear long sleeve and pants. I know it might be too hot, but there's actually clothing out there that has what is called UPF, or ultraviolet protection factor. This type of clothing is designed to protect our skin from the sun's harmful UV rays. So when you shop, just look for the UPF. Another tip that I would recommend, and I'm sharing these with you because look at these caps. But wear a hat that provides our face with shade. Also, wear sunglasses. There's sunglasses out there that do protect our face or our eye area from the UV rays. But if anything else, when you are outside, look for shade. Do what you need to do to protect your skin from the sun's harmful UV rays. Taking these extra steps into consideration in protecting our skin, the skin's gonna thank you later. Christy Brinkley once said that the best beauty secret is sunblock. That might explain why she looks so good at 68 years old. Again, thank you so much for your time and joining me on this week's episode of Glow Up. If you have any beauty tips that you want to share with us, comment below. I am Bernadette Regini, Glow Up Eagle News.
Sunscreen fan right here. Thanks, Bernadette, and thank you all for watching. View, like, share our other shows. City Limits with Alan Basalyahe. Connected with Dr. David. Take a seat and join us with Anna Kui. Plate Date with Mike Hudson and friends. Plus, Journey, Stories of Filipinos in Canada with Kathleen Cruz. Great last name, Kathleen. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, @Eagle News Live. I'm Ken Cruz. Happy weekend, everyone.